So recently, I came across a new video about power scaling Skibidi. These are rare to come by now. So, I knew what I had to do. I had to watch it if it was valid. Surprise, surprise, it wasn't. So I, the kind soul that only exists to bring you entertainment, shall now debunk this video. So let's get right into it.
If I were to tell you to name the weakest character in fiction or the weakest verse in fiction, who would you think of? Out of the ones that are actually compared in versus discussions.
Generic, typical plastic bag.
They're fucking cookies! They're cookies! Look! Cookies! Look! Lion! And tigers! And bears! Oh my!
Homelander and Skibidi Toilet, as both of them are actively some of, if not the most slandered verses.
He later went on to slander Skibidi Toilet. He starts off this video saying how, oh, Homelander, well, he's one of the weakest characters. There's a whole TikTok pages about who can Homelander even beat. Well, with all these actuallys, you think, Homelander probably loses pretty easily. And yet, how does the video end?
So, in conclusion, Homelander just stat diffs despite the fact these guys do have a quite variety of attacks and are quite smart. And proves Homelander isn't the weakest in fiction. I'd argue Skibidi is definitely a contender more so than Homelander.
Wow, they really sent me here to fight a bunch of clankers. Let's see what you got. Hit me with your best shot right now. So I was told I had to fight some nerds, so come on out, pussy. 60 Seacombe Street, Toronto, ON M5J2H5 Canada. What? This your kid's crib? What are you doing? Target locked. G toilet. Release the kamikazes. Oh, also, the spare time I had before this fight, I just made this. Was that always there? Yes. I don't care how much bigger than me you are, you clanker. I can see your video game glowy spot. Taste my laser eyes. No, not again, please, no. Okay, so, what does he say about Homelander? He says that there are multiple statements that say he can destroy a city, but he never does on screen. A character says there are no weapons in the world that can harm him, and yet he gets stabbed by a fucking metal pole. He also says that since he's the strongest superhero, he should be able to do what every other hero can do, but way better. Which is just faulty reasoning, because it's like saying, oh, since Superman is stronger than Batman, it means Superman is smarter than Batman. Which is just wrong. Batman is way smarter. He can go supersonic, and this is seen multiple times. And he says he can go hypersonic to hypersonic plus because of one, the Butcher explosion. But the thing is, we don't know how far Homelander was when the explosion happened, so it's pretty unreliable. And him saying he can go to space. And he says, well, he has no reason to be lying, but he might still be lying. It's Homelander. You really trust what Homelander says?
It wouldn't necessarily be inconsistent to say he's just a flat-out city-level character. Not only is even random heroes large town level, who once again to Homelander should just be stronger than by an insane amount. Even before he gets stronger on in later seasons, he has too much of these city-level statements, especially from the perspective of a lot of them being from more objective sources, such as guidebooks. Then it would be quite hard to deny he is actually a city-level threat. Guidebook backed this up. It stated several times either he can take nukes or is implied he could take nukes, or weapons of only higher caliber can kill even weaker characters than him, or at least that is what is debated between the characters in the show. That is the narrative they're trying to present, with the atom bomb statement and the statements that no weapon in the world can kill him. Not only do even random superheroes in the canon episodes of the tie-in show Boys Diabolical create large town level storms, and since Homelander is verbatim the strongest hero in the verse, he should upscale. With speed easily for Homelander getting into supersonic at least, he flew at supersonic speeds when he was a child.
You know, when I was his age, I was breaking the sound barrier.
And can casually do it in the series. So, once again, this is a baseline, with hypersonic plus 2 high hypersonic stuff, off of the fact he can outrun Butcher's explosion in the infamous speed feat of his, which is a hypersonic plus speed feat, and the fact he can go to space, did it by himself, which in this specific instant, there's no reason to doubt him, meaning he has to be reaching escape velocity, or about 25,000 miles per hour, a high hypersonic feat. Oh, Homelander was harmed by a metal pipe in his ear. Not only did Homelander just not want to fight Maeve initially, and was probably holding back, compare something she did in the far past to something she does literally seasons and years later.
Sorry for the long hymn break, but I just had to make sure I show all the parts of his video where he says the things I'm saying he says, unlike a certain someone. He starts off by saying that everything under a semi-titan is getting one shot, which is accurate, I'd say. But I was actually pretty curious about something, so I looked up Homelander's max lifting strength, and I got 450 tons, which is a lot, right? It's a big number. You know who can lift 20 times that? If you're wondering what I'm talking about, just check this video. I explain it there at this timestamp. I do not feel like going into this again. Even if saying that all of the basic cameramen are just cannon fodder, even that's debatable because we can see that they can tank Astros ramming into them, and he says that Astros are at least supersonic.
GPE, the explosions produced by the characters and created by these characters constantly. Though it should also be noted these explosions often harm these characters, even the higher tier ones. Like these top tier ones do get affected by these building 2 city block explosions and attacks.
Okay, kind of. Well, because these multi-city block level attacks don't actually harm the characters. They harm them after they get hit by them multiple times. It's not like they get hit once and are like, dang, guess I'll die now. They can tank multiple multi-city level block hits.
And sometimes explosions actually can't destroy the buildings, and a lot of the times the explosion doesn't really do anything to the surrounding area, which can be attributed to the fact that it's a Gmod animation, but still we do have to take it in the literal narrative sense that these explosions just aren't as strong.
Remember this, because, well, here he uses the animation as an excuse for something. We will come back to this in a bit, I promise.
For debatable higher ends, there are town level calcs for some of the characters, specifically being...
Get ready, because he's about to show his complete bias. Because remember how Homelander had every if and possible? Like, oh, sure, he got stabbed in the ear, but he wasn't actually trying to fight. Oh, yes, the woman who broke her arm on a truck can damage him, but she had years of training. Well, yes, he did say he can go to space, but doesn't show it, so why would he be lying? Oh, he has a power plant, which is highly debatable in and of itself, because a woman in said power plant that exploded was basically unharmed, so I'd like to argue that power plant thing is bullshit anyway, but ignoring that. Well, he clearly wasn't an excuse, because he then probably had years of training. Even if, you know, he never had anyone that could actually contest him, so he probably didn't need to train. As soon as Skibidi Toilet has calculations, he says this.
GPE when they move quite fast. Well, this is not only inconsistent due to the fact that the calcs are quite iffy, assuming the materials made for these likely made of fictional metal that some of these come from like outer space. So I think it would be quite hard to argue that like a lot of these guys are made from or have the same properties as real life metals.
Adrian. This point is just a way to say, actually the Skibidi Toilet calculations are off. Because Skibidi Toilet is based on Earth, and thus all the metals would be Earth metals. But no, let's just say some of them are from outer space. That means all the metals aren't real. And the funny thing is that later in the video, he argues that they don't have interstellar travel.
Interstellar travel, which we don't know how they're achieving interstellar travel, if they even are.
So how would some of the metals be from space if they don't have interstellar travel? And why wouldn't the metals that were actively on Earth be real?
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
When a more easier interpretation is you just say it's a random fictitious metal. When a more easier
way to literally discredit every single calculation and possible feat, while not making any actual logical and factual counter-argument.
Just say it's a random fictitious metal that we don't know the properties of. Adrian. This would be where they really cap at the town level ranges, even for the top tiers. And once again, even these town level attack calcs that are quite questionable are things that harm the characters quite significantly. However, there is two infamous arguments that you can mention. One of these characters are just city busters, which is pretty simple. We're just gonna get the simple one out of the way. They're really not. We know they destroy cities over time. However, the fact is we don't know the time frame of this, and we don't know if they're obviously not doing it in one attack, and especially they're not doing it on their own for that matter. So this would probably just add more consistency to those building 2 city block ranges of power.
Everything he just said can be mirrored to Homelander, because no way Homelander destroys a city in one attack. Nothing's been shown that he's able to do that, and nothing's shown that he's able to do that in not a decent period of time. He said he can destroy a city, doesn't say he can do it in one attack. Also, the Titans can definitely destroy a city, each one of them on their own. Titan TV Man can destroy a building that's at least 3 stories tall with one swing. What do you think he's gonna do to a city if you let him cook? I'll tell you, the city's cooked.
And for the higher feat that a lot of people are going to mention is the mountain busting feat that done by the mothership of the verse.
Also, him calling the Astro Mothership the mothership of the verse probably means he has no idea what the fuck he's talking about, and he hasn't even watched the series.
But just like the others, I do have a lot of potential with this. Not only is the beam visually far away from the mountain, we quite literally see the ship move away from the mountain, and the context is that it's drilling into the ground, and the only thing we ever see destroyed is the ground. Nothing shows or says the mountain was destroyed. And even if this would only be for the attack potency of the verse regardless, as the fact that nothing shows this massive laser, that by the way, the calc ignores the fact it takes like 15 seconds to charge and 5 seconds to actually destroy the environment.
Well, that doesn't make sense because we see that as soon as the laser touches the ground, there's already an explosion. Sure, it gets bigger, but that's exactly the same way how nuclear explosions look. First, there's the little guy, the little mushroom cloud, and then, you know, the doom of death and destruction appears. That's just how explosions work on a bigger scale.
With the town level being a more high end, while the city block is the more conservative and consistent end for these characters' attack potency and durability.
Okay, I don't have anything in my mind to disprove the attack potency thing, but again, about durability, Time TV Man tanked a haymaker that was made after Juggernaut ran around the entirety of Earth in 14 seconds. Also, they have tanked missiles comparable to nukes. Also, the lasers are lasers, so you know, they're pretty hot. Also, Boom has said that the Astro's guns are plasma, if I'm correct. Either that or the Alliance's new weapons are plasma and reach 10,000 degrees Celsius. So yeah, durability being town at a high end is honestly crazy work.
For speed, they cap at those sub the supersonic rangers. They can move faster than perception a lot. Some characters can punch at this speed.
Okay, again, no, they can definitely be faster because of this, and that. At least those three prove that they can go faster. And then with Boom's statements, others are probably even faster than those. So no, they can go definitely faster than sub supersonic.
There are some calcs that get higher, but these calcs just flat out lie. Not only trying to use the argument that the lasers in the verse that are never stated or proven to be actual lasers, and in fact don't act like lasers, which is shown by the fact they explode on contact with objects, which is something laser.
I wasn't actually gonna mention this out loud, I was just gonna put text, but this guy, the one example he used is exactly the wrong one, because in that scene, in the original episode, not the remastered, the explosions are caused by the lasers hitting the cameramen, who are mechanic, and thus cause an explosion. Could have used any other example, genuinely any other one, and it would have been correct. Uses the exact wrong one, it's unbelievable.
Do not do, making this fictional laser not having the speed of light properties that a lot of people assume it has.
Remember that thing I told you to keep in mind?
Which can be attributed to the fact that it's a Gmod animation, but still, we do have to take it in the literal narrative sense that these explosions just aren't as strong.
Remember how I told you to keep that in mind? Now he contradicts himself because before, we are using Foley show logic. Even if the explosions should break buildings, they don't. Thus, the explosions don't break buildings. But now, we're using real life logic, aka lasers don't cause explosions and don't curve, thus they aren't lasers. Pick a struggle, okay? It's either explosions should break buildings but don't because it's a Gmod animation, thus the explosions aren't strong enough to break buildings, so we're fully going off, the show's logic, or the lasers in real life, they don't curve and don't explode things, so those aren't real lasers. And now we're following real life logic. These two things don't go together. You need to pick a side. Which one do you want to believe? Great choice. Anyway, the book states those to be lasers, so those are lasers. End of story.
Still, we do have to take it in the literal narrative sense that these
Laser curve and explode shit.
and a lot of calcs also just acting like basic perception blitzing for some reason is higher than subsonic, which in this context, no, it's not like they're blitzing a higher speed character than this. But, and once again, it doesn't really matter even if they're blitzing a supersonic character, it would just be 10 times faster than them.
Juggernaut, while going around the Earth by himself, had to be going at least Mach 8,000. And then other Astros like Astro Hunter are also incredibly fucking fast. Not sure of the precise speed, I'm gonna be honest, but Executor grabs him out of midair. Again, they're able to react to people that are faster than them. That wouldn't be a problem for them.
Some people also try to argue that they're FTL, interstellar travel, which we don't know how they're achieving interstellar travel, if they even are.
First of all, we know they are because the Astros are an interplanetary empire. And we know how they do it. They get inside of bigger ships like Mothership and zoom off. Not sure of the time frame, I'll give you that. The time frame is unsure, we didn't get that.
Even if we want to say they can perform interstellar travel, nothing shows they can move at the same speeds they do in space that they do on the gravity of the planet, and there's nothing proving that they can.
Actually, yes, there is. The thing is that they float. I don't know if you noticed. Astros float. So they aren't really affected by gravity. I think they have freedom of movement however the fuck they want. Not sure how, but gravity doesn't affect them, so they can probably go the same speed inside the Earth, outside the Earth, on the planet with the biggest, strongest gravity. I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter.
Especially when this fight is obviously probably not gonna go take place in space.
Well, Homelander better pray the fight takes place on Earth because he needs to breathe. But as long as the actual stick gets to space, Homelander can't win. And then he talks about the abilities and what the Skibidi Toilet characters have. Which I really wouldn't if I was him, because, we know what they can do. Scientist Toilet, in his mech, was able to stun plunge a man in the air while he was going super fast using his speakers. Which, by the way, Homelander's weak to sound, so that would happen to him. Second, the plasma shields they have can resist lasers, so his laser eyes would not penetrate the shields. Third of all, the shields activate automatically. So if Homelander were to try and rush at a character, the shield would activate and he'd bonk his head and then probably get fucked. Basically, Skibidi Toilet just has a hard counter for Homelander to anything a Homelander can dish. Also, he massively downplays the TV screens by saying, oh, they have one that can control machinery.
Light that kind of can, like, control robots.
And that's it. Which is wrong. No, TV Woman and Larry can detach their heads to control machinery, but TV men can hypnotize using their TV screens, even living things. And also, Time TV Men can make him kill himself. Also, spoilers for The Boys. I'm about to say something that might fucking spoil, but I don't know. Homelander dies when fighting a clone of himself, which was Soldier Boy. A whole story that I don't care enough to understand. But he dies when fighting someone equal to himself. From what we've said, one Titan is equal to Homelander, if not superior to him even. So, if we're sending the whole Skibidiverse against them, Homelander is getting demolished. I feel like one Blade Runner could legitimately put up a fight, considering how Blade Runners have superhuman strength, their swords are made of lasers, which can definitely cut more than fucking metal, they have astro speeds, and they have sound, which is Homelander's weakness. I'll tell you how Skibidi Toilet wins right now. One upgraded speaker shredder from the speaker armada goes in, stuns Homelander with noise. One TV man starts to hypnotize him, makes him stand still. Mothership charges up her laser, blows up Homelander, and Homelander's dead. It's that easy. Homelander is cooked. There's no better way to put it. Maybe there's a reality where he wins, but I can't think of it. Maybe if it's the whole Boys universe, but I'm not sure. He also goes on to mention some stat gap. Right? But, like, each one of Homelander's stats is passed by a Skibidi Toilet character. Lifting strength, big speaker man, which then scales to every other Titan and bigger unit. Speed, Juggernaut. Durability, Time TV man. Attack potency, also Juggernaut. Like, man, the stat gap is real. It's not in Homelander's favor, I'll tell you that.
Anyways, especially considering the fact that this laser has no evidence of scaling to the mothership's durability.
Following Newton's third law, since the mothership was able to output the laser in the first place, it needs to be able to tank something similar to the laser. Also, the only source I could find about Homelander's laser eyes say they're around 500 Fahrenheit. That might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, in fact. But Boom has confirmed that the Astro's weaponry goes to 10,000 to 20,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
So, in conclusion, Skibidi just stat diffs despite the fact that Homelander do have a quite variety of attacks and are quite smart. And proves Homelander is the weakest in fiction.
Also, Boom said Skibidi Toilet's no fiction, so I win. I always win.